order to decide on an aesthetic for our short thriller film opening Awatea, we had to communicate with our group to see what we liked, as well as consider the cohesiveness and purpose of our choices. This applied to sound, props, and location, as well as fonts and logos. Since having an unsuitable font would be jarring and ruin the tone of the opening, we needed to be careful. This was especially important considering the non-verbal nature of our film. We went for a big list of fonts and logo designs before settling on a few. A Gothic font called Old Heraldry, which was overlaid by a more hollowed out form of Helvetica Neue, which is a modern bold sans font. We found that the Gothic font in red paired with a more modern font in white gave the logo a more sinister aesthetic, as well as making the text almost appear as if it was on fire. I went through quite a thorough process in looking for these fonts, and what I discovered was that certain pairings of fonts make for really interesting combinations, and the fonts that I picked I felt best represented our film. While I was searching for font ideas, the main overall aesthetic that I was inspired by was films such as Enter the Void, which is directed by Gaspar Noé, and Moonlight, which is directed by Barry Jenkins. I really like the coloration that Moonlight has, and the opening sequence from Enter the Void is really inspiring for me, especially the text logos. In regards to camera work, I learned a lot more about different kinds of shots and their techniques. One example of this is using the rule of thirds, dividing the screen into ninths and then using four straight lines. And where the corners of these nine boxes meet, the audience's eyes will be most attracted to. Key details should fall on these points. An example of this in our film is when the protagonist in black clothes is walking away from the main road and towards the secluded, muddier area. He is in the left third of the screen, directing the viewer's attention to him rather than any of the unnecessary details such as the houses nearby. Another example is when he's climbing the stairs at the very end of the opening, and suddenly the character in white's arm appears in the right third of the shot. This diverted attention from the protagonist to the other character's arm, happening in a very short shot. So it was vital that we could convey this information clearly and concisely by drawing the viewer's eyes to where it mattered most. Everything in our film was shot at night, so a lot of specific work on lighting needed to be done in order to ensure clarity. We chose nighttime due to the mood that we were trying to achieve. The opening wouldn't have the same impact if filmed at a transitory level of light such as dusk. In terms of hardware, I learned a lot about practical production aspects. For filming the final production of our film, we used a Canon 700D camera, which coped really well considering the low lighting conditions. The initial raw footage came out great, but we did have to go back and reshoot a few times. Each time the Canon was reasonably consistent with what film it would produce. We did, however, encounter some issues with graininess caused by the lighting conditions, particularly in the more lowly lit areas. In some parts, the grain actually added to the creepy, uncertain tension of the opening. In this way, I learned how to identify and overcome issues within the production.